that the flight from Delhi to Ayodhya will be a rather short one. We'll try to figure out the exact time. In fact, if you can, maybe Asabri, look up how much time will roughly take to travel from Delhi to Ayodhya. And this is just the first flight, viewers. We're expecting, of course, now several thousands of these flights from all across India, from all across the world. The fact that they will have the ability to now reach directly a major religious spot, a major religious global hub is all that matters today. And this is a significant development that has taken place. In the morning, of course, we saw the Prime Minister there inaugurating the railway station in Ayodhya, and right there on your screens are visuals of the Prime Minister inside the airport. From the looks of it, it looks like an extremely well-made, a very modern, a very developed airport, as it is deserving of a major religious site, like I said. And we have, of course, with us several guests also with us on the broadcast. When I see these visuals, Himanshu Bhatt, I see you with us on the broadcast. When I see these visuals, Himanshu ji, the first thought, of course, strikes one's mind is that when exactly are you booking your tickets?
Very, very soon. Because, it's Sanatan. And for Sanatan, everything is okay. I'll tell you something. If you ask 100 Sanatanis today, what is their wish list? And what's on top of that? 70, 80 would say, first visit to Ayodhya after 22nd. And then rest of it. That's basically because, that's a question of faith. And the basic faith in a human being. For that, you need not be religious. You need not be called a dharmic fellow. It's there in you. And, when the time comes, and especially, after so much of struggle, we have seen in our lifetime, we did not believe. I'll tell you very frankly, when I was young, I did not believe that I would see Ram Mandir being built and I'll be able to go there in my lifetime. Forget about other people. When I tell that to my children, they find it very difficult to understand. Papa, why are you saying this? But they don't know what the struggle was. The struggle was internal, basically. Because we had got freedom from the clutches of British on one side, and we had developed a servant's mindset. See, the basic problem was our mindset. Our mindset was such that we still believed in that classroom formula and worked as clerks, earned our living, and did what was said. And so, when the slogans like Garibi Hatao came up in 1971, we were very, very happy. Ab Garibi Gai. But did that happen? We all know that. So I'm telling you my experience, the way you asked me, At this age, when someone gives me a chance, what is your first wish? Well, Ayodhya, I will go there. Because I want to see that inscription on Valmiki Airport. What's the verse of Ramayana which is written there? Why they are written there? I want to see that, the Saryu water which was there when I was young, when I went there, are still the same. For so much of blood has flown from that. So these things matter. Emotionally, they do connect. And probably that is the reason, if you talk about it a little politically, what will happen is, when a party makes Ram their symbol, nobody can defeat it. Ashavani.
Absolutely. And keeping the politics aside for just a moment there, I want to bring in the other guests as well into the conversation. Let me ask, the same question comes to my mind, Shekhar Vijay, and let me ask you as well. Now that the facilities are all there and that the government is going to do the best that it can to give us the best of facilities in Ayodhya, and why not? The point is that you are taking something, like I said, which is a major, major religious spot. You want people from not just India, but all of the world to come to Ayodhya. So you have to make sure that everything, the surround sound that you're creating around it. So you have the best of trains that are reaching Ayodhya. You have the best of the airport facilities. You want a very neat and clean and modern facilities all around a space that is very religious. You know, it doesn't have to be any different from, say, a Vatican. When one lands in the Vatican, it's an absolutely surreal experience altogether. And that's precisely what our aim has also been. Shekhar, I'm going to request you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. I didn't hear the last part, Devika. Are you able to hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, it's just a basic point there, Shekhar, about the fact that when we talk about the development of or the construction of a Ram Mandir, a lot of thought has also then gone into the surround sound. It's not enough to just build the mandir, but you have to ensure that you are making the best, most modern means possible for people to actually enjoy the journey to the mandir itself. So you are making the best of the railway stations. You're ensuring that your Vande Bharats, the fast trains, are all reaching Ayodhya. You're giving a very neat and clean and a very modern airport, and you're literally starting the journey. You want to start the journey to the mandir itself from your railway stations, your airports, your roads itself. So therefore you see at the airport itself, we see all these beautiful murals that have been painted by Indian artists, literally telling the story of Lord Ram and of the Ramayana. And clearly a lot of thought has gone into it, which definitely does make it an attractive spot for people who may or may not believe in Hinduism altogether. You're not saying that, okay, this is a religious spot where we only want Hindus to come. You want everybody to come and experience the joy of being in Ayodhya.
Absolutely. So, Devika, I think it all goes to show that, we're not just looking at this as a religious festival. This represents India as a whole, and this is a proud moment for India, Indians in India, and the rest of the world. Now, for example, when you go to a place like Paris or France, you go experience the Louvre Museum, right? Because that is that is the center of what Paris stands for. In the same way, I think Ayodhya can be this and much more. I think in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the airports, in terms of the railway stations, in terms of even museums, I think we can also have museums around it, because I think, like one of your panelists was mentioning, the fact that, talking about the river, you're talking about emotional intelligence here. And I think this is India's biggest strength. India's biggest strength is storytelling. India's biggest strength is emotional intelligence. And we can use this in such a nice way in Ayodhya ji. I think this is possible. And it's, like I said earlier, I think it's a proud moment for us. And it also makes tourism possible. It also makes employment opportunities possible. It also creates a strong ecosystem for so many job opportunities. It's not just a religious festival. It's not just about the Hindu pride. It's so much more to it. I think it represents India as a whole, irrespective of religion, irrespective of community. It represents India, what India stands for. And why should we be apologetic about it? Because this is what India is, right? At the end of the day, you're talking about something which represents India, which is symbolic of India, which is our identity in some form. And if we can marry this with storytelling, if we can marry this with emotional intelligence, if we can marry this with strong leadership, which the government has shown in terms of being very proactive, in terms of getting the infrastructure in place, in terms of getting the railway stations in place, in terms of getting the airports in place, in terms of getting the hotels or the motels in place. Because I know for a fact, I've got so many friends who have messaged me from different parts of the world, being very curious about what is going on in Ayodhya. So there is a lot of information which is going out, and the government is trying to make it as transparent, as streamlined as possible. For a fact, I'm sitting in Kerala right now for the year end, and I have the papers are all about what is going on in Ayodhya and what the government is doing and the kind of projects which are being inaugurated. So I think it's a proud moment. We should revel in this, and it's a brilliant start to the new year. I think that's how we need to look at it, because this is only being positive. I think the only way we can look at this is we're just going to go forward from here. We cannot go backward from here. And this was in the making for such a long time. So we should revel in this. The tourism will also improve. Our infrastructure will also improve. Our economy will also improve. And with projects which are worth around 15,000 crores, I think it speaks for itself. The employment opportunities, the job opportunities, the ecosystem which it creates, there is so much more. I had recently been to the Statue of Unity. There was such a wonderful sound and light show, which when you
Yeah,
listen to the sound and
exactly.
light show,
Yes.
you get goosebumps. You get goosebumps when you listen to the sound and light show as an Indian. And I've experienced that. Why can't we experience the same thing in Ayodhya? Why can't we experience it? I think that should be the objective. We should represent, forget about it being a Hindu or not being a Hindu festival. I think it represents India as a whole. I think that's what we should look at, because it represents India's cultural identity. And in terms of economy, and in terms of tourism, and in terms of everything which India represents, we should go for it in complete,
Absolutely.
in
And
complete
at the same time, Shekhar, also understanding the importance of Ayodhya and what the kingdom stood for and the expanse of the kingdom. And I'm sure I've not been yet, but I do know that next year at some point I will 100% be visiting Ayodhya, and I hope that the government by then will have done enough to at least show something that we've been talking on NewsX for a very long time. When we talk about Ram Rajya, what it actually meant, what it stood for, how many countries in this entire region were actually united by the concept of Ram Rajya. Perhaps that's something that the government will probably be looking into adding, to bring some more flavor to Ayodhya as a tourist destination, keeping, of course, the religious and the spiritual aspect of it completely aside. And I think that's also been the mentality of this particular government, that we will develop, of course, a beautiful mandir where Hindus and others who believe in Lord Ram can go to, and they can understand the journey, they can pray, they can connect to their spiritual and religious side. But other than that, there will be other things to attract populations from across the world. Professor Nalapat, we're expecting, I think, the Prime Minister to talk shortly from now. I do see, of course, union ministers giving their speeches. But before we dip into that, just a quick question to you. I've been asking everybody this, and I want to understand from you as well, sir. When are you booking your tickets to Ayodhya?
Well, most likely in April of next year, which is not very far distant. I'm planning for April and spending some time there, because you need to spend about 5 or 6 days to soak in the atmosphere. And for me, this is important because it is a reclaiming of the history of India. During the colonial period, we lost a lot of the history of India in terms of knowledge of the history of India. Knowledge taught in schools, taught in colleges, and taught in family groups. And now we are reclaiming the entire history of India. And for me, that's always been very important. If we say that we have got about 6,000 years of history, of recorded history, let's say, it goes much further back in town. But let's go back and talk about 6,000 years. For a long time, it was the last 200 years that was all important in our textbooks and in our learning. Possibly about 600 or 700 years. But it was terra incognita before that. Now that is being reclaimed. And I quite agree with Shekhar when he says, this is not a question of religion. This is absolutely not even a question of we as citizens of Bharat. Because after all, Lord Ram, his example, Lord Ram's, it is human civilization. And that is where I think Ayodhya is going to attract visitors from across the globe. Just as so many other centers. You have, for example, in Rome, you have so many historical sites that attract people from all over the world. You have the same thing in other parts of the world. And I think, it is really wonderful that we are now reclaiming our history. And not only that, we are seeing through that history that it's a very proud history. It's something that all of us can be proud of. And it's something that we should revel in sharing, not just with all the people of India, but all the people of the world.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.